If you've been told you have a rotator cuff tear, one of the first questions you probably have is, do I need surgery? I performed over 10,000 surgeries on the shoulder, and the answer is honestly yes, but not always. There are specific reasons or times when you definitely want to have the rotator cuff repaired. So let me walk you through how I think about this. I'm Patrick Denard. I'm a shoulder specialist who does 100% shoulder. I do a lot of research. I've published over 300 articles, a couple of textbooks, and done over 10,000 surgeries on the shoulder. And first off, I think it's important to clear up what exactly is a rotator cuff. It's not one thing. There's actually four muscles that make up the rotator cuff: the subscapularis, the supraspinatus, infraspinatus, and teres minor. And the primary function of the rotator cuff is to control the stability of the shoulder. So the rotator cuff helps the ball and socket joint, or the glenohumeral joint, maintain stability, because the shoulder is the most mobile joint in the body, but inherently it's unstable. I like to think about it as a ball on a golf tee. So what keeps that relationship, the stability of the joint, is actually the muscle, or the rotator cuff muscle, pulling the ball into the socket. Now, when you get tears, that stability can be compromised and your strength can be compromised. So let's also talk about the difference in types of tears. So there's partial tears and there are full thickness tears. With a partial tear, if you think about this like a rope, you have fraying on the ends. And with a full thickness tear, there's complete separation of that rope. Another way to think about it is on the heel of your sock. You may have some area that's getting thin, but it's not quite gone all the way through until there's a full tear, and that's where you have a full thickness. Now, I'd also like to clarify that with partial tears, one of the things I commonly see on an MRI report that people get concerned about is low-grade partial tearing. Recognize that as we age, we get some degeneration within the rotator cuff itself. That tendon changes. Radiologists will frequently call this partial tearing. Honestly, if it's low-grade changes, I wish they wouldn't even call it that in most cases, because it really creates an alarm for people. But low-grade problems of the rotator cuff, generally speaking, are not a problem. There can be cases where it's misinterpreted, but generally speaking, if you hear low-grade tearing, that is not something to worry about. If you have high-grade partial tearing, it becomes something where we may want to investigate it further, or it may need surgical treatment. They start to be treated like full thickness tears. And then full thickness, again, is a completely different animal. There's also a difference in how rotator cuff tears happen. Most rotator cuff tears are degenerative in nature. This gets back to the partial tearing aspect. Slowly the tendon degenerates with time. And if you look at age, for instance, about 50% of people at age 65 have a rotator cuff tear. That tells you it's essentially a very common and almost normal process. Now, acute tears, ones that happen with trauma, somebody falls on their arm, that's much less common. And those are treated differently. If somebody has an acute rotator cuff tear and it's a full thickness tear, the data there says that they generally are going to do better by having it fixed earlier rather than later. This makes sense. Right after a tendon's attached is the best time in terms of the biological favorability to get healing of the rotator cuff. But again, most of these tears that occur are degenerative in nature. So let's start with the good news. Not all rotator cuff tears need to be fixed surgically. If you look at the data on physical therapy, about 70% of people will get better with conservative treatment consisting of physical therapy with rotator cuff tears. What do I mean by that exactly? There's a good study that looked at long-term outcomes, a multi-center study, and they basically followed people out to 10 years and found that if people were successful with physical therapy after a 6-week course of treatment, they had a very low likelihood of actually going on to surgery. 70% of people actually maintained function over time and did not go into surgery. So the success is actually quite high. Interestingly, one of the things that influenced people's decision to go into surgery was just how they perceived physical therapy. So if people believed in physical therapy, they did well with it. If people did not believe in physical therapy in this study, if they said, hey, this is something that's not going to work, turns out they didn't do so well. Is that psychology or what? I'm not exactly sure, but it's an interesting finding or something to think about in terms of if you're going to go through therapy, buying into it actually probably makes a lot of sense. So what does conservative treatment look like? The mainstay is physical therapy. Injections are an option. When you look at steroid injections, the primary role of a steroid injection is that it's just going to calm down inflammation. And I don't like to do a lot of steroid injections. I have a guideline that I don't want to do any more than 2 in a year period if we're thinking about surgery. If we're not thinking about surgery, I don't want to do any more than 3 in a 2-year period. But the primary purpose of the steroid injection, again, in general, is just to calm down pain to allow you to do physical therapy. The mainstay of treatment is physical therapy, and then what you're doing there is you're not healing the tendon actually, you're rehabbing by compensating with the surrounding muscles. Once you have a tear of the rotator cuff, it does not heal without surgery. Now, you can see stories of people saying, well, I did PRP injections or stem cells, and that is just simply not true. If you have a full thickness tear, it does not heal magically. We do not have technology at this point in time that will do that. Since I spoke about PRP, that is definitely another option. Again, primary function of PRP is not going to be tendon healing. It's really calming down inflammation. If you look at data comparing PRP to steroid injection head to head, what you see is that PRP actually might provide a better benefit once you get out to like 6 months or 12 months or so, but it's a slower onset. So this probably makes sense because steroid has more of a catabolic effect, meaning that it breaks down tissue to a certain extent, but PRP is using your own cells, spinning that down, getting the growth factor rich area, and that provides more of an anti-inflammatory property that's probably more natural. So it may just be that it has less side effects than steroid. The downside of PRP, of course, is currently it's not covered by insurance, so it's an out-of-pocket expense for most people. So how long do I do conservative treatment? If we're in a stage where we've determined that conservative treatment is the best option for somebody as a frontline treatment, typically, again, we're going to do therapy for a minimum of 6 weeks, but overall, by the time somebody comes in, you're looking at 3 to 6 months of attempted conservative treatment. If we're not getting better by then it's a time of discussing, hey, should we go on to surgery? But we try to make that decision as quickly as possible. And the caveat there is I told you 6 weeks, but usually by the time somebody sees a shoulder specialist, they've had symptoms for a few months. They've been, working through it. Then we're going to try therapy. We may or may not try a steroid injection PRP and see how somebody does for a short period of time. Then if they're not performing well after that or where they want to be, then we have a surgical discussion. So now let's talk about when is surgery the right call. Well, first off, if you have an acute traumatic tear, a true acute traumatic tear, oftentimes surgery is the best call in that case. Now, there can be cases where it's acute on chronic and really it's just a small progression of something that's been there for years, and we may not, but generally speaking, if somebody has a traumatic injury, the data says that you're going to be best off by having it fixed and fixed in a timely manner. That's somewhere in the order of 3 to 4 months, but there's some suggestion that even weeks are perhaps beneficial. It doesn't mean you don't do well if you have surgery later. Let's say you have a fall, you try to treat it conservatively, and you come back 6 months later and have a repair. You can still do well. It just means that if you compare people who have repair early compared to those who have a repair later, those who have the repair early tend to do better. So one of the other things that's important to understand in terms of surgical treatment when we talk about degenerative tears is that rotator cuff tears, again, do not heal on their own. And when the tendon is detached, it starts to atrophy. It fills in with fat inside the muscle. And this is not the type of atrophy that reverses. It's well shown that once you get fatty infiltration or atrophy of the rotator cuff, it does not come back. So what we like to do is think about where somebody is in their function and their place in life in terms of recommending surgery or not recommending surgery. So for instance, as a general guideline, rotator cuff tears will progress, about 50% of them will progress over a couple-year period. The longer you go out, the longer they are to, or the more likely they are to progress over time just by more time or exposure. So as a general guideline, when it comes down to a degenerative tear, if somebody is under the age of 60, I pretty much recommend fixing that rotator cuff tear in most cases, if it's a full thickness tear. The reason for that is that if we leave that rotator cuff tear, it's going to get larger over time. And generally, if somebody is in their 50s, they're going to have a long time to use their shoulders, and I'm really worried about that getting larger. As the tear gets larger, you get more fatty infiltration or atrophy. The results of surgery go down when the tears get larger and when you get fatty atrophy. Another thing that I look at is I look at the location of the rotator cuff tear. So we like to think about the rotator cuff in terms of a suspension bridge. And if you picture a suspension bridge, there's typically 2 large towers. And if you have a rotator cuff tear that involves one of the towers, what we call the cable insertion, your tear is more likely to progress and develop fatty infiltration or atrophy more quickly. So when somebody may have a small tear involving the anterior cable, they've damaged an important biomechanical component of their rotator cuff, and we're more likely to recommend a rotator cuff repair. Versus if the tear is in the central aspect, some of those small wires, if you picture the suspension bridge, they're much more likely to have it be shielded and have a lower risk of progression. So the reason that we want to get to these early when somebody's younger is, again, we can have better results. The rotator cuff tears are smaller and when they have less fat infiltration, but we also know, even though I said, yes, people can do well with physical therapy, if you look at 10-year data, those who have a rotator cuff repair do better than those who do physical therapy over that period of time. Again, it doesn't mean people in the physical therapy group don't do well. They'll do well. It's just that you do better. And that's because when you have the rotator cuff repaired, you're more likely to have the tendon heal and prevent progression over time. So on the other hand, if somebody is in the older category, say they're over the age of 70, I'm pretty much going to start most of the time conservative because we know that we have a pretty good chance at a good 10-year outcome. We typically, not in every case, but typically we see less activity when somebody's in their 70s and their 80s compared to somebody who's younger. And then in that middle range, it's a case-by-case determination. So in summary here, what we need to look at is the age and activity of the patient, where the tear is, and by looking at all those things as well as their function, we can help determine what is the best course of treatment. And in the big scheme of things, it's even though a tear may be small, if it's full thickness, we might want to be more aggressive about treating that surgically so we can prevent it from going on to become a big tear. Whereas if you have a very large tear, you come in late in the game, we might say, well, let's try therapy because the end stage or end solution here is a shoulder replacement anyways if it's gone on to that point. So it's case by case. Really what it takes is having somebody who has a lot of expertise in it, looking at your MRI, looking at your function with you and making the best decision, because it's, there's guidelines, but it ultimately comes down to an individual decision for each person. So now let's talk about what the surgery actually involves. So I do all my rotator cuff repairs arthroscopically, which means I put a camera into the shoulder. I can look into the shoulder, evaluate the rotator cuff tear. It's the best way to see the rotator cuff tear, hands down. By doing that, you can properly assess the anatomy, and our goal is to get an anatomic rotator cuff repair, meaning put the tendon back as close to its native anatomy as possible. So little stab incisions are made, look in with a camera, and introduce anchors, which are anywhere from a couple of millimeters in size to 5 millimeters in size. The number of anchors is going to vary, but essentially we're going to bring that tendon down and trap it under sutures to repair the tendon down to the bone, and the goal there is to get the tendon to heal. Now, as a shoulder specialist, since I do a lot of this is a procedure that takes about 45 minutes. If you have a very, very large tear, a massive tear, it may take a bit longer, hour and 15 minutes. If you have a small tear, it may be 30 minutes. That is done on an outpatient basis, meaning somebody goes home the same day. What does the recovery timeline look like after rotator cuff repair? Well, that's variable. Again, it gets to tear size and biology. What we know is that smaller tears have a higher chance of healing, especially if you can get a really good biomechanical repair. I like to do what's called a double row repair of the rotator cuff whenever possible, versus large tears because there's more atrophy. The tear has been there for a long time. The biology is typically decreased. It's going to be a harder chance to get healing in that setting. We have more odds stacked against us, so we're going to be slower in the rehab. So along this spectrum, if I have a small tear, say it's 2 centimeters or less in size, and I get a really good repair, I'll have somebody be in a sling for 4 weeks, sometimes even as little as 2 weeks. But if we have a large or massive tear on the other end of the spectrum, somebody's going to be in a sling for 6 weeks. What you do in between also varies. I have all my patients doing some simple exercises right away. They're walking, they're moving their head, neck, elbow, wrist. If they have a small tear, they're going to do some controlled shoulder exercises as well on their own while they're in the sling. They're going to take it off a couple of times a day. Versus if they have a large or massive rotator cuff tear, they might just sit tight in their sling. They can take it out and do hand, wrist, and elbow exercises only, but we have to be more cautious because if we know if we're too aggressive moving in that case, we have a lower chance of healing. Generally speaking, when you look at the full recovery of rotator cuff repair, you're looking at about 6 months using the measures that orthopedic surgeons use, especially shoulder world that we use to measure how people perform. What that means is that at 6 months, you're unrestricted. And this really comes back to the healing. So healing of the rotator cuff based on primate models takes about 12 weeks. So probably for a small tear, it might be a little bit smaller, and a large tear a little bit longer. Moreover, the rotator cuff continues to remodel for several months. That's why it's really 6 months in most cases to be unrestricted for everything, plus or minus a little bit. Now, that's a long time, and I would not sugarcoat rotator cuff recovery. The benefits are that it's minimally invasive and low risk, and the long-term outcomes are excellent. The downside is the recovery does take time. And if you look at that 6-month thing, by the measures we use, it is 6 months for people getting back to maximizing their recovery. But when you truly talk to patients and ask how they're doing, they will often say that they continue to improve between 6 months and 12 months. But again, that 6-month point is really important, because what it means there, we talked about the healing cycle, and when we look at data, we see if people can get to the 6-month point, they do very well long term. In other words, if you can get to the point where you heal, and at 6 months you're where you want to be, the likelihood of success is very high long term. The likelihood of re-tear is very low if you're healed at that point. It's exceptionally low. It really takes something dramatic for that to occur at that point in time. So there's the bottom line. If you have a rotator cuff tear, it's really an individual plan. You need a specific plan with your surgeon who understands what your goals are, what your function is, and what your MRI shows. Hopefully that information helps you in making an informed decision if you have a rotator cuff tear. Some tears can be managed without surgery. Others, a wait and see approach is going to be detrimental. If you need specific advice on your shoulder, we offer virtual consultations and MRI reviews, and good luck.